it's Jennifer from Fiber Flux. Welcome back to week 2 of the Fiber Flux Summer Crochet Along. We are going to be making this blanket together, the Sail Away blanket. It's a classic ripple blanket, very easy stitches and very fun to kind of experiment with colors and the color palette. Now last week I shared both the information about all of our supplies, and on the Fiber Flux blog I also shared some color palette ideas to give you just kind of some direction or a starting point if you're unsure about what colors to do. So I hope that that helped, and I love seeing what you are coming up with. So definitely keep sharing what you're doing, how you've started, or maybe the balls of yarn that you've purchased so far or gotten from your stash. So today we're going to be focusing on the size of our blanket. So we're going to be making a starting chain using multiples, and I'm going to explain all of that in just a moment. We're going to be working on the starting chain, getting our multiples to create width for our blanket, so whatever width we want it to be. We're also going to be learning how to create this ripple stitch using very simple stitches, just some double crochets and some chains, so very easy. And also we're going to learn how to work the first few rows of the ripple stitch and also how to change colors. So as you can see, we have some nice stripes here. I'm going to show you how to go from one color to another color. Okay, so without further ado, we're just going to jump right into the tutorial, and stay tuned for the end of the video because I'm going to share some places where you can also share your work and ask questions. We have a really great community happening with the Crochet Along as well. So let's jump right in and learn how to make this ripple stitch. So for today's tutorial, I grabbed my partially finished blanket so we have something to look at while we're working and beginning our blanket. I've also grabbed the yarn, and for today's tutorial you'll need your hook, and the measuring tape is extremely helpful to get the width of your blanket established, and then your scissors. So we're going to be working on the starting chain. We're going to learn how to use the multiple in order to establish width on our blanket. Then I'll show you rows 1 and 2 of the pattern. This ripple pattern only has 2 rows, and row 2 is what you'll be repeating for the rest of the pattern. And then I'm also later going to show you how to change colors, whether you're moving on from one color to the next, or if you run out of yarn and you need to just simply add another ball of yarn and keep working. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about our blanket size. Now last week I showed a quick chart of some standard blanket sizes, whether you're making a baby blanket or up to a king size throw for a bed. So figure out which blanket size you would like to have first. Now, like I mentioned before, I'm going to be making a twin size bed blanket. That's going to be big enough to cover a twin size bed. So my blanket will be 66 inches wide and 90 inches long. So basically when we do our starting chain, I'm going to make mine about 66 inches wide, and then I'm going to work my rows until I reach 90 inches. Now my blanket is partially completed, so I'm going to keep working on mine. Obviously it's a crochet along, so I'm going to keep working on mine, but so 66 by 90 inches will be mine. But check out the chart. I'm going to show it to you one more time just now, and you can check it out, and also hop on the Fiber Flux blog, and that way you can see it all the time as well. So check out the chart now, and I'll show you. It'll go from baby to king size bed. Okay, so once you've checked out the sizes and you figure out what size blanket you want to make, then we're going to talk about multiples. So as we do our starting chain, we're going to keep in mind the multiples. Now if you're not familiar with the concept of multiples, the multiple of this blanket, now that's the number of chains that you'll need in order to create the stitch. So whatever stitch you're doing for a project, it will have different multiples. So for our ripple stitch blanket pattern, the multiple is going to be 10 plus 5. So what that simply means is when we're doing our starting chain, and we're going to do this all together, when we're doing our starting chain, it's going to be, when we're making our chains, it'll be 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, and so forth until you get the width that you want, and then you'll just add 5 more chains in addition to that. So for my blanket, like I mentioned, 66 inches wide is my blanket. That means my starting chain turned out to be 155. So I made 155 chains to begin my blanket. So that fell within the multiple. So that was actually 150 chains that I used to establish my width, and then I added 5 more chains onto that. So 155 chains to do the twin size blanket. So figure out what blanket size you'd like, and then with the starting chain, stay within that framework of the multiples, 10 plus 5. So 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, and so forth, as wide as you'd like it to be, and then add 5 more chains onto that, okay? So let me slide this blanket out of the way, and we're gonna jump right in and do our starting chain together. Now, this is actually, my blanket is actually upside down because I started from the bottom here, this dark blue. So this edge right here was actually my starting chain. So if you're following this color palette, so I have 4 colors that I'm working with. Again, 2 balls of each. So, 2 balls of the spring green, 2 balls of the white, 2 balls of the turquoise, 2 balls of the blue. So the color order I went in, if you're trying to replicate this, is I started with the blue, then I moved on to the turquoise, then I moved on to the white, then I moved on to the spring green, and then see how I'm repeating that. So just if you want to replicate this, those are the orders that I went in. However, you can really play around with this. Now I did 6 rows of each color for my ripple, but you could do 6 rows and then like a little skinny row of turquoise and then a thick row of white, and you can really play around with the widths as well. It's just a matter of what you want to repeat. And I know a lot of you have mentioned on the YouTube channel comments that you're using yarn that you already have, which is awesome. That's so wonderful if you have yarn already and you don't have to go get more. So if you're using, maybe making it like a scrap kind of blanket with using yarn you already have, it might be many, many, many different colors. You don't have to necessarily do 6 rows per color like I did. Really feel free to mix it up, okay? And that makes for a really fun maker gallery at the end of our crochet along as well, seeing what everybody did. Okay, so I'm going to scoot this blanket aside, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I did the starting chain. So again, I started with this blue color, so let me just grab a little bit of that yarn because we're going to work on our starting chain. Now, I will put a link below for how to do the foundation double crochet if you prefer foundation stitches instead, or if that's something you'd like to learn. That, if you're not familiar with that, that eliminates the need for a long starting chain. So I have a video for that on how to do that. I'll put the link below for the foundation double crochet as well. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to work our starting chain. It's a multiple of 10 plus 5. So my starting chain is going to be 155. So whatever size blanket you're doing, just work within that multiple of 10 plus 5, okay? So the first thing we want to do is put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. And then just as a refresher, we're doing the 6mm J crochet hook in case you missed last week's video. Okay, so we're going to begin our chains. So to make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Remember, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the hook loop. 12, that was 12, 13, 14, 15, 51, 52, 53, 54, and 55. Now, 2 things I wanted to mention about the starting chain. You want to make it loose, but not too loose. You don't want it to be overly loopy, but you do want it to be pretty loose. See how mine's, you can see the loops, it's pretty elastic. If you're having trouble, and I get this question a lot, if you're having trouble with your starting chain being too tight, go up 1 hook size, try the 6.5mm K hook just to make the starting chain. Then for the rest of the blanket, go back down to the 6mm hook, and that will help get your chain loosened up a little bit. The other thing is too, we all have different tension. We all make our chains tighter or looser depending on how you hold the yarn and your hook and your crochet style. So your starting chain might have a slightly different measurement if you're doing the twin size blanket like I am. So definitely make sure you pop out your measuring tape or ruler and measure your starting chain to see if it's the correct width or the width that you're after. You might need to, depending on your tension versus my tension, you may need to adjust that starting chain length a little bit. So again, 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, you may need to add 10 more or, you know, shrink it down a little bit. Okay, so I did my multiple of 10 plus 5, and now we're ready to start row 1. Okay, so we're going to work row 1 once, and then we're going to be moving on to row 2, and row 2 will be the row that we'll be working over and over and over and over for the rest of the blanket. So row 1 is quite a bit of counting of the chains, and we're just really establishing the foundation of our blanket, okay? So for row 1, in the 4th chain from the hook, we're going to work a double crochet. So this loop here on the hook that's already on the hook here does not count. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that 4th chain from the hook, we're going to work a double crochet. So to make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops on your hook, okay? So that's the double crochet. Then we're going to work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains, okay? So double crochet in the next chain, that's 1 and 2. Next chain 3. Next chain 4, okay? So we worked a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. Let me get a little bit more yarn. The other thing I like about the Red Heart Super Saver yarn is that it has these center pull balls of yarn, which make it really nice. My yarn is staying put while I'm using it, so super helpful. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is skip 2 chains. 1, 2, and then in the next chain, we're going to work a double crochet, and we're going to do this in each of the next 4 chains. So once again, 1 double crochet, that's 1, next chain, 2nd double crochet, next chain, the 3rd double crochet, next chain, the 4th double crochet, okay? And I've gotten a little tangled with my chain here, so let me just get situated. There we go, okay. Let me just slide that out of the way. All right, so already we've established one of the valleys of our ripple. So our ripple goes up, down, you know, to make a ripple. So we're going to be creating valleys, and then we're going to be creating peaks. So it'll go down and then up and then down and then up, okay? Once we get past row 1, this will get a lot easier and quicker, okay? So we worked a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. Then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. Okay, so find the next chain, and we're going to work a double crochet, that's 1, next chain, that's 2, next chain, that's 3, next chain, that's 4, okay? So this was our basic, now you can see we have a peak. Okay, a peak and a valley so far. So this is our basic kind of stitch sequence. So we're just going to be repeating this for the rest of the row, and I will work that with you, okay? So next we're going to do is skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, just like that. Then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then in the next chain and the next 4 chains, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll work a double crochet in each one of those. So the next chain, that's 1, next chain 2, next chain 3, next chain 4. Okay, so I like to go back and check, make sure I have valley, peak, valley, peak. One time I was working this and I had 2 peaks side by side. So I knew I had to rip it out and redo that section. Okay. So what we want to do next is, we're going to skip 2 chains. So 1 and 2, and then work 4 double crochets in each of the next 4 chains. So 1, next chain 2, next chain 3, next chain 4. Okay, so double check your work there. Chain 2, 1, 2. Okay, and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. As a side note, if you need to see any of this, because we're doing a lot of counting, you can simply back the video up and rewatch any of these parts. And I believe there is an option too, if you need to see it really slow. I try to go slow just in general, but if you need to see it really slow motion, there is a little drop down in the bottom of the video frame. There's a little drop down box and you can really slow it down. If I'm going too slow, you can speed it up as well. And then my voice sounds funny because I'm talking really fast. Okay, so we just worked 4 double crochets. All right, so now we're ready to work one of our valleys. See, we just did a peak. So skip the next 2 chains and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, next we're going to chain 2 to establish that peak, and then in the next 4 chains we're going to do 4 double crochets. So 1, 2, let me grab a little bit more yarn. So that was 2, and then 3, and 4. Okay, so we just did a peak, so we're ready for a valley. This will make more and more sense as you're working across, okay? And you've done it a few times. So skip 2 chains, and then in the next 4 chains, work a double crochet in each one of those. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just like that, okay? So chain 2 to create the next peak, and in the next 4 chains work a double crochet in each one of those. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so just always peek back and make sure that you are, having the peak valley pattern. Okay. Okay, so we just did a peak, now we're ready for valley. So skip the next 2 chains, and the next 4 after that, work a double crochet in each one. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, now we're ready to work a peak of our ripple again. So chain 2, 1, 2. And in the next chain, work double crochet, and so that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the rest of our chain is going to be pretty much the same thing that we've been doing. So I'm going to pick up speed a little bit. Again, if you need to slow it down, try that option, the drop down box option, or just kind of back up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to pull out a little bit more yarn, and we're going to kind of cruise through the rest of this row. Okay, so we just did a peak, so we're going to skip 2 chains and work our valley. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we did a valley, now we're ready to do a peak. Chain 2 and work a double crochet in each of the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, the next part is a valley. So skip the next 2 chains and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you're working a long chain like this, just make sure that you don't twist your chain, your starting chain up. Just keep it nice and flat. Okay, so we worked a valley. Now let's work a peak. Chain 2 and work a double crochet in each of the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we're going to work a valley, skip 2, and then work 4 in each of the next 4 chains. 1, double crochet, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, chain 2 to make your next peak. And in the next chain, work double crochets in each of the next 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're ready to work a valley. Skip the next 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, whoops, let's work 3 again. Sometimes you drop stitches and it's totally fine. So that was 3 and then 4. And you'll see as you're working row 1 how important it is, like I mentioned before, to have your starting chain nice and loose as well. Okay, let's work another peak. Chain 2 and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, our valley is next. Skip 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're ready to work a peak, so chain 2. Let me get a little bit more yarn. Again, these center pull balls of yarn are really nice for big projects like this. Okay, so we worked a chain 2 and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. We're getting towards the end here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're at a valley, so skip 2, 1, 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, now chain 2 for the next peak. 1, 2, and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I realize there are many of you who want to see the entire row 1 worked out like I'm doing here. And some of you will get the hang of it way at the beginning. So just if you need to skip through some of this, that's totally fine as well. Okay, we're going to create a valley. Skip the next 2. Work a double crochet in each of the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, whoops, and 4. All right, we're ready to create a peak again. Chain 2, and look, we just have a tiny little bit of blanket left. Chain 2, 1, 2, and then in each of the next 4 chains, work a double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Skip the next 2 to create that valley, and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we're ready to create a peak. 1, 2, and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we just have a tiny little bit left. Okay, now we're ready to work a valley. We're just going to keep going until there's 1 chain left, okay? So however long yours ended up being, or wide, just keep going till there's 1 chain left, okay? So we're going to work a valley now. Skip 2, and then work a double crochet in each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, as you can see, I have 1 chain left. Now, when you're doing a starting chain, it almost seems like a miracle when it comes out right with all these chains, and then you have exactly the right count. Sometimes we can lose count, and then, not have enough chains, or maybe have an extra chain. That's okay. You can just, so if you didn't have any more chains, so what we're going to do, let me show you if you had the correct number of chains. In this last chain here, we're going to work 2 double crochet just to finish off the row in that same chain. So work 2 double crochets in that same chain, the very last chain. Okay, now let's say you didn't have that last chain, you were short a chain. You could just work 3 in that very last chain, or if you had an extra one, you could work 1 in that chain and then 1 in the next chain, like if you had an extra. So sometimes that happens. It's not a big deal. Definitely don't rip it out if you're short one or have an extra. Just try and spread out the stitches a little bit if you have an extra, or just put them all together if you need to. And that's fine. By the time you work row 2, it'll kind of work itself out and you'll never notice it, okay? Now, if you have like 6 extra chains or something like that, that might be a problem. That would definitely show. Now, there are ways you can take this tail and kind of weave in those chains, so you could try that as well. Okay, so we got to the end of row 1 for our blanket. Now, what I'd like to do now when I'm making a ripple blanket like this is lay everything down and look and double check that I have the peak valley sequence. We don't want 2 peaks side by side or 2 valleys side by side. So just double check before you move on to row 2 that everything is accurate. So let's check it together. We have a valley and a peak, a valley and a peak, valley, 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 and a peak, valley, peak, and a valley. Okay, I know that's a little bit tedious, but it's so worth it to correct everything now in this kind of foundational row. So we're going to move on to row 2 next. Now, I promise you row 2 is much easier. We don't have to do all this counting of chains. We're going to stick with the blue for row 2, and then when we get to the end of row 2, I'm going to show you, even though I did 6 rows of each color for my other blanket, I'm going to show you just how to switch colors as if, we had made the number of, made the stripe as wide as we wanted it to be. So let's work row 2 next. We'll stick with the blue, and then I'll show you how to switch colors or switch yarn balls if you were to run out of yarn, for example. Okay, so row 2 is next. Okay, so once again, row 2 is the row we will repeat for the rest of the blanket. So what we're going to do to transition from row 1 to row 2 is to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now for this ripple stitch pattern, there's something a little bit unusual about this, and that is we are going to work a double crochet in that very first stitch. Now normally this chain 3 counts as a double crochet and we would kind of just hop over to this next one, but this Now let me bring it way up. This hole, see our chain here that we just did? This hole at the base of the chain, that very first stitch, we're going to work a double crochet into that stitch. I know that's a little bit unusual, and we don't normally do that, but it's really important to keep our ripple stitch going. So work a double crochet right at the base of that chain, that stitch right there, and that will get our row started. Okay, next we're going to work a double crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And I promise you this is a super easy ripple stitch. Some of them are more intricate and require more counting, but this one is super easy. So now you can see we're at a valley. Now there's going to be 2 stitches we're going to skip over. So here, this next stitch that we come to, we're going to skip that one and the stitch after that. Those are the 2 stitches you can see. They're kind of at the top of this valley here. Skip over both of those and then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, okay? So 1, 2, and 3. Now we have arrived at our first peak. So to work our peak for row 2, we're going to work into the space this time. So remember that peak we created by working a chain 2 in the last row? This space right into that hole, we're going to work our stitches, okay? So work a double crochet into that space, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then work a double crochet also into that space. And now you can see our peaks are now stacked on top of one another. And as you work more and more rows, that will become more obvious, okay? Then we're going to work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're at a valley again. So skip over those 2 stitches and then work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Just like that, okay? Now we're at a peak. So remember, the peak is worked into the space. Work a double crochet right into the space, then a chain 2, then a double crochet right into that space. And now you can see we have a couple of peaks and valleys. They're starting to stack on top of one another. And this blanket really comes to life when you start switching colors. So the peaks and valleys become more highlighted when you start creating stripes of color, which we will get to in just a moment when we get to the end of this row. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're at a valley, so skip the next 2 stitches and then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. If you're a fan of Fiber Flux blankets and you've made a couple of these, you may recognize the same ripple stitch from the Boardwalk Breeze blanket. That was a much chunkier blanket, but if you've made that blanket, you'll find this particular stitch to be familiar. We're at a peak again, so work double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. I'm going to pick up speed now since we've done several of these peaks and valleys. Again, if you need to slow the video down or back up a little bit, please feel free to do that as well. Work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We're at a valley, so skip the next 2, then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So that was 1, this is 2, and 3. Once again, we're at a peak of our blanket, so work into the space, double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet. Work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We're at the valley, skip the next 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 3 that come after that. So that's 1, 2, and 3. We're at a peak, so in the space, work a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet. Work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Whoops, I grabbed a little too many loops there. So that's 1, 2, and 3. The next valley, skip the next 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 3 that come after that. So that's 1, this is 2, and 3. Work your peak, same way we've been doing. Double crochet into the space, chain 2, and a double crochet. You can see we just really cruise through these rows. This is a really perfect pattern for summer. It's very relaxing. Once you get the stitch sequence and the ripple established, you can just kind of cruise right through it. Okay, work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then we're at a valley. Skip the next 2 stitches and then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 that come after that. So 1 and 2 and 3. Then we're at a peak. So work a double crochet into that space, chain 2, and a double crochet in the same space. And then work a double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Once again, if you've got this down pat and you're just kind of working along with me and you've memorized this sequence already, you can skip past this part. If you want to see the whole thing, stick with me. Skip the next 2 stitches for the valley and then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we're at a peak again, so work a double crochet right into the space, then chain 2, then a double crochet in the same space. The really neat thing about the Fiber Flux community is that we have lots of different skill levels. We have people just starting to crochet, and then we have people who've been crocheting for 50, 60 years, so it's really fun that everybody kind of comes together and learns together and helps each other too. Okay, work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. We're at a valley, so skip the next 2, then work a double crochet in each of the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. We are getting there. We are getting there. Not too much more. Okay, so the next one is a peak, so work a double crochet into that space, chain 2, double crochet into the same space, then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. That was 1, this is 2, whoops, I dropped my stitch. Just back up a little if you happen to do that too. All right, so that was 1, 2, and 3. And now we're at a valley. So skip the next 2 and then work a double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches that come after that valley. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Then our peak, we'll work a double crochet into that space, chain 2, 1, 2, and then a double crochet, all in the same space there. Work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. Skip the next 2 stitches, work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches that come after that valley. And we're at a peak again. So double crochet into the space. Just get a little bit more yarn here. Chain 2 and then double crochet in that space again. Okay, work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, whoops, 2, that was 1, 2, and 3. And then what we're going to do is skip the next 2 stitches for that valley and then work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We're at a peak, so work your double crochet and then chain 2 and then double crochet all in that same space. Let me just redo that again. There we go. Okay, then a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Again, if you have this sequence down pat, you can just feel free to skip past this part. But if you want to see all the stitches, hang out with me for just a little bit longer. We're almost to the end. Okay, so we are at a valley. So skip the next 2 stitches and then work a double crochet in each of the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. We are at a peak, so double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. Work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then the valley, skip 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. And in the valley, work a double crochet, a peak, excuse me. Sorry about that. Double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet. We are almost at the end. So double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We're at that valley, skip those 2, work a double crochet in each of the next 3. 1, 2, 3. And now we're at the end of the row. So you're going to see 1 more stitch. So we did 3 like we've been doing, work a double crochet in that last stitch as well. And then here's our starting chain. In the topmost chain of that starting chain, you're going to work 2 double crochets in that topmost chain. So 1 and 2 to finish off the row. That will give that ripple, that V sort of edge, okay? So let's look at our handiwork. We have covered quite a bit of ground today with row 1 and row 2. We've talked about multiples and sizing, and we've left no stone unturned here. So I like to just, whenever I work a couple of rows, I like to just kind of sharpen up those peaks. See how I'm just kind of pulling on those spaces here that we've created? Just sharpen things up. And our ripple looks stunning. It's really shaping up nicely. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is how to switch colors, okay? So if we take a quick peek at our blanket, I started with the blue, and then the next color I went on to was the turquoise. Now we've only worked 2 rows here, but we're gonna pretend as if we're ready to switch colors. You can switch colors whenever you want. But for the blanket that I'm working on, my finished blanket, well, work in progress blanket rather, I did 6 rows of each color, but we're just going to go ahead and switch now so I can show you. So let's slide this blanket out of the way. And I've already grabbed the turquoise. Now this is turquoise, but Red Heart calls it turquoise. I know a couple of you were asking why I was saying turquoise that way. They call it turquoise. Okay, so let's grab our work in progress here. Now we left off here, I left a loop. So what we want to do now is, there are lots and lots and lots of different ways to join a new yarn. I like to simply cut it and tie the new one right on. There are fancier ways to do it. There are different ways where you can kind of start crocheting and just pick up the yarn and go. I like to just cut it and tie it right on. Now you can, if you have a preferred way of joining yarn, please, please feel free to do that. This is your project. You can do it however you want. But what I like to do is simply cut the yarn like that. This tail, I would say, is about 6 to 8 inches. You don't want it to be too short, but you want to give yourself enough room to weave it in. But you don't want it to be super long because it's going to be hanging there while you're working on your blanket. Okay, you don't want it to get all wrapped up in everything. So what I'm going to do is simply wrap the yarn around the hook and bring the loop through just to fasten off. Okay, and as you can see, now we have the stitch that we left off on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is simply take my new yarn and insert the hook into that last stitch where you left off. Insert the hook right into that stitch. Now you're going to hook the new yarn on and pull it through. Again, if you have a preferred way of doing this, please feel free. This is the way I like to do it. Okay, and then we're just going to tie it right on. Twice is fine. Just 2 ties, and then that's good. That's plenty secure for what we need. Some people don't like knots. They like to just join it a different way. Now we'll get these tails out of our way, and then we can proceed. So we've already covered row 2, which we'll be repeating over and over and over for the rest of our project. But let me get you going on a few stitches just to show you how that new yarn's going to kind of play out. Okay, so reinsert your hook back into that stitch where you tied the yarn on, bring up a loop, and then if you remember from row 2, we chain 3. 1, 2, 3, then turn our work. The other thing about row 2 that is important to note is that that very first stitch, see at the base of our chain, we're going to work a double crochet right into the base there, just as a refresher. And then you can just keep going with the pattern. If you need to see row 2, please feel free to back it up and watch row 2 once again, okay? So we put one in that first one, and then we're just going to keep on going with our ripple stitch with this beautiful turquoise, which I just love this color. And then you can keep going with your ripple stitch as long as you want your blanket to be. Now mine is going to be, remember, 90 inches tall. So I'm just going to be repeating row 2 over and over and over until my blanket is 90 inches tall. Now let me grab this other one. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to keep repeating row 2 over and over until it's about 90 inches tall, and I'm going to stay in my sequence. 6 rows of blue, 6 rows of turquoise, 6 rows of white, 6 rows of spring green, and then I'll repeat that all over again. Okay, so keep repeating row 2 over and over and over until your blanket is as tall as you would like it to be. And then next week, we're going to rejoin. I'm going to give you some helpful tips. We're going to talk about joining yarn again in case you need a refresher on that. And then we're also going to talk about finish work. Chances are, if you're doing a striped project like me, you'll have some ends that you need to deal with. I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm also going to show you, if you have a very small end, how to work that as well. That happens sometimes. Sometimes it's unavoidable, and our ends are really short. I'm going to show you a little trick to help you deal with really short ends. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them below, and myself or someone in our community will help answer your questions. Also, check out my social media links below: Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Google+, Twitter, where you can join in the Fiber Flux community, you can share photos, you can ask questions, you can see what other people are doing. I also highly recommend that you join the Fiber Flux Crochet Along group on Ravelry. That is on the Ravelry page, and I'll put the link below for our group as well. But people love sharing photos. You can share your work in progress. If you've bought yarn or have your colors picked out, you can share those as well. Ask questions, and it's a really great place to share your work. It's just Crochet Along related. So definitely join that group if you haven't already. It's already a large community of about 600 or so. So join that group, and also if you haven't subscribed to the Fiber Flux YouTube channel where all the tutorials for the Crochet Along will be, definitely hit that subscribe button. And I will see you next week, and we are going to learn how to finish off the blanket. So happy crocheting this week, have fun working on your blanket, and I will see you next week for week 3 of our Crochet Along. Bye everyone!